This podcast, Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, is for kind of those in the know about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, bringing you more information about what you need to know and maybe what you can leave aside about homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what?
All right. Good morning.
Good morning, good day. It's a Friday recording.
Good afternoon and good evening.
All of that.
Wherever you are. Welcome. Let's settle in.
There's a YouTube person that I watch who starts her recordings by saying, wherever you are in the world, a shout out to you.
Oh my God, really?
It gets on my nerves.
That would get on my nerves as well.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a noise moving my chair.
That's
there
fine.
We go.
There you go.
It's not even a chair.
It's not.
It's a footstool.
Yeah.
I've been relegated to the footstool.
What
Sitting
a week.
At your feet.
Oh, please.
What a week indeed.
I am beyond whatever the word is.
Oh, please don't even start with me.
We're going to have a competition about okay. How many 14-hour days did you do last week? This week?
4, and one of them happened to have been a holiday. The time that I had to take off for writing my thesis is really like smacking me in the head. I thought, I'm finished. It's going to be like, now only having one job. But
we're almost at the end of the academic year.
Yeah.
So that's something, and then it means it's kind of, time for focusing on other things, right?
I'm still thinking about the fact that I taught every class this week.
You did.
I taught every session. Some of them are doubled, but including 2 8 a.m. start clinics after 9 p.m. finishes the night before.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot.
Whoever scheduled those 8 a.m.s, they're...
Her name is Lisa.
They're brutal.
If she's listening. She's on vacation this week because she knew that if I had seen the schedule, she'd have to run. Anyway, I actually
it's
love
not
it.
about us.
No. Anyway, but it's I was just thinking about why we're doing this on the Friday morning, and it's because there was a clinic yesterday. But last night was
what did you do last night?
Yeah, so we do these free classes each year. Alastair does the history of healing, and I do homeopathy and integrative medicine. In other words, how sort of integrative strategies support the homeopathy.
Nice.
Yeah, and last night was the first one, and I actually really love teaching this.
I listened to it. It was really good.
You came for the whole thing. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
No worries, mate.
No worries, mate. I like to think of those 8 lectures we do, 4 each, as context. And for some reason, I think it's just me. Well, it's not just me, but, it helps. I know we go to work and we're jobbing clinicians and we're faced with complex problems that we've got to, work on and stuff. But to get to do that job well, context really matters.
It totally matters. And I think,
and actually, I'm realizing why I'm saying that is because of an event that happened, which I must admit I'm still, smarting from, really. But, it was just a couple of smarting. Just a couple of comments like, do we have to do these history lectures again? It's just really interesting to hear that because I think it matters a lot. And especially if history is taught from the perspective of how did this happen, and this is a contemporary challenge we have,
right?
Then you've got to learn the history.
Well, you have to. I mean, especially when it comes to homeopathy, and I actually taught a little bit of this the other day. The fact that the historiography of homeopathy. I mean, it's really easy to talk about, sort of to allow ourselves to feel victimized by the man. We've been taken down by allopathic medicine and big pharma and all that. It's just like not that true. There are so many things that happened in the 19th century in homeopathy that have affected. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sometimes you need a visual. So we're sitting in Alastair's office, and he just found a hat that he is now wearing. It's called a kubra. Is that what do you call it?
It's an akubra.
A kubra,
mate.
And describe what it is? Forget about what I was talking about.
No, I want to hear what you're talking about.
Yeah, but now
irrelevant.
but I'm sort of distracted.
So this is the quintessential Australian cattleman hat or farmer.
I'm going to take a photo of you in this.
Let me just get it on right
there. There you go.
All right. Because it's, I believe, rabbit skin. Rabbit felt.
What?
Yeah. It's these are amazing.
Yeah.
All weather. Like when I wear this outside, this is my good one.
Right.
You know, good at.
Right, that's your fancy one. That's not the one you wear to the farmer's market on Saturdays.
No, that one's a skanky one. But that one has been rained on. It's been blown around the yard along with me.
Yeah.
Can we get back to you, though?
Yeah. I was talking about the context of homeopathy, and especially 19th century homeopathy, because there's this narrative that, homeopathy was doing really well, like everything was great, and there were hospitals, and there were colleges, and then Flexner came along, and boom. And that's not what happened, actually.
No.
And I don't know that we're going to get totally into that today.
No, that's not the point.
But
context is the point.
But context is the point,
and
because it's surprising.
So I was teaching the history stuff. I've got a couple to go. You were looking at the look around at the crazy shape of the integrative medicine wellness space, and let's talk about what's going on, right?
Yeah, sort of. Sort of not. I mean, it's sort of it's the idea of the set of talks. It comes from a series that I used to do back in the day when I started practicing in Philadelphia again. I was in Minneapolis from 2001 to 2006, and then I moved back to Philadelphia. And as I was telling the group last night, working in Minneapolis, it's like it was the ideal place to be a homeopath, because there were lots of homeopaths and good ones, right? There's a real culture of homeopathy because of Northwestern Academy, and and Val Ohanian and Eric Summerman. I mean, there were two sort of amazing homeopaths that anchored the community back in the early 2000s when I was there. And there was also, adjacent to that, there was a culture of self-awareness around self-care. I mean, it was the first time I met people who were gluten-free, was, 2001 in Minnesota, and fragrance-free. Even like the co-op, the food co-op, the Wedge, had a checkout line for people who didn't have anything with fragrance, so that if you had multiple chemical sensitivities, you could check out without being around somebody who just bought a new, patchouli or whatever, So there was just such a culture of awareness around the different ways that we need to take care of ourselves. And when I moved back to Philly, that was not the case. And I had so many clients in my practice, kids diagnosed as being on the spectrum. And remember, 2006, this was the beginning of...
Here in
Philadelphia. It was the beginning of when I think we homeopaths were really seeing the first big uptick. I mean, I'm sure there were other people who were seeing it earlier, but that was, for me, that was when the first spike happened in my practice. And what came along with it was that the parents were really struggling to get their kids to eat, anything but a small variety of foods. And, parents of kids with pandas now have a similar issue, right? There's all sorts of this avoidant, restrictive food intake issue that goes along with some of these diseases on the gut-brain axis. And so that experience informed my practice, a lot, right? It was the first time that I really felt like I couldn't just use homeopathy. I needed to help my clients to support their bodies sort of in other ways. And I think being in Minnesota, the people were doing it for themselves, I mean, where was the person that wasn't sort of aware in some way at that time in my practice? But when I got back to Philly, it was culturally really different. Did you have that happen? I mean, did you experience that?
Yeah, I did.
In Australia?
I mean, I remember the first time the woman sitting in front of me said the weirdest thing in my life, and it was like, I've become allergic to meat.
Oh.
And that was 2004. And, I'm going, what is this? I spent a bit of time doing primitive 2004 Googling.
Yeah.
And, that was my first...
Alpha-gal syndrome.
Yeah. And, when that happens, I think, if you're awake, you go, what's going on? If the second and the third and the fourth one then turns up, then you've started, you've got to look around and start thinking. And the one thing that you keep saying in your lectures, and I've heard you say it 20 times over the years, which is incorrect.
What's that?
Is that when I met you for the very first time.
Oh, no, you're going to start with this again.
At the end of the long corridor.
Yeah, here we go.
Is that, and we did have a conversation about your practice.
You're going to say you didn't give me a side eye, is what you're going to say.
I didn't give you, if it was a side eye, I was like, who's that hot shit?
Watch it. It's a family show.
It's a family show. It was, no, because I was, at that stage, completely, I had moved from Alastair homeopath alternative to integrative, and I was well down the road of that, and looking for practitioners that had integrated breath work or body work or nutrition or things to augment their practices, or not augment their practices because homeopathy wasn't doing it or they weren't busy with homeopathy, but to augment their homeopathy and make their homeopathy better.
Okay, so I'm gonna have a mature moment.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna change that story.
Okay.
I still like it.
No, it's a good story, but it's a story.
But it's okay. Well, then maybe I will take responsibility that maybe I was feeling defensive or embarrassed. Embarrassed would be more like it.
Oh.
Because I take myself sort of seriously as a homeopath, and you were writing your method book, and we were talking about it, and I was talking about sort of this integrative approach that I took, and I think. If I'm really honest and fair, I think that there was a little part of me that I felt like I wasn't talking about homeopathy in the way that sort of always identified who I was, right? But talking about something else to a homeopath that I didn't know.
And that's really interesting because, and going back to that point you made last night, it's that we're fixated on the pills. And
we totally are.
Yeah.
We totally are. And this is, and okay, so.
Or the drops.
Or, yeah, there are.
Just one drop, magic pills.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The movies.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now we've got a whole bunch of things. We have, now all the balls are in the air, right? And
This is how we roll.
This is how we roll.
I just can't keep track of them all.
I'm going to help you.
Okay, well, you are.
Because I caused the problem.
Female-bodied and Italian, so I'm relying on you.
Okay, so here's the thing. You brought up the allergy to meat, alpha-gal. And remember I was saying to you, what did I teach this week? Because I felt like we were talking about some ideas of what to talk about today on the podcast. And I said, there was something from one of the classes that I took, but now I couldn't remember. But so I taught this class on Lyme disease to the Tuesday night group, I think, Taco Tuesday. And it's a class that I love for a bunch of reasons. And this is not a non sequitur because the alpha-gal allergy, so this is an allergy to meat proteins, usually presents first as beef. Now we're seeing a lot of pork. But if I'm not mistaken, it originated in Australia. I mean, I think it's...
Oh, I did not know that.
I think so. And it's relatively new here, or at least, within the last, 5 years or so. Maybe it's more than that. But, and it is associated with Lyme disease. But do they have Lyme disease in Australia?
And sorry, that was the implication. That was my first experience of Lyme.
Okay.
Because that symptom came along with, they think I've got Lyme. That was the first time I'd heard it. And so my client was, what clients do, what patients do when they have symptoms,
right? And
then they project manage their own health as well as being sick. And she was, researching. She said, "I think I've got this thing called Lyme."
Yeah.
And so, that was.
So it's not common in Australia in the way it is here.
No,
oh my gosh,
definitely not.
Do you know that?
Well, it might have been, but not for me.
Do you know that my grandmother had Lyme? My dad's mom, and
hypochondriac.
No, she wasn't hypochondriac. That's my mother's family, all hypochondriacs, which, we appreciate. Anyway, my paternal grandmother was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and this would have been in, I don't know, maybe the late 70s, maybe in the early 80s, something like that, but before it was really common. And this is the funniest thing. It's like, it's a tick-borne disease, and you think about people getting it like from being out in nature.
She never went outside, right?
She's one of those Italian ladies that had her yard concreted so she could keep it clean. Only Greeks and Italians do that.
I know,
right?
It's amazing.
I saw a funny meme on one of my, Italian Instagram posts. It was Italian dads watering the driveway.
Oh yeah,
keeping it clean. I mean, that's the thing. And yet, my grandmother somehow she was such an early adopter, right? She managed to get Lyme without even ever going to the woods. But this idea, though, like this alpha gal, right? So this is really problematic. I mean, there are people who are struggling. I have a client that I see who has 2 kids who have this. I don't see the kids, but she's really worried because they're getting on to be old enough to go to college, and they've got a couple of food allergies and alpha-gal. And I wonder about sort of this way in which evolution of sort of industrialization and pollution and all the changes that are happening in the world, since changes in the food supply, since we moved away from being an agrarian culture and, pasteurization, homogenization, like industrial canning and all this sort of thing. And, you add to that the increased use of antibiotics in the food supply and antibiotic resistance that's come from overuse. And you've got this dead gut stuff. We talk about the microbiome and the terrain and all of that, but the level of complexity is when people try to solve that problem through a reductionistic way, we just create more problems. Like all the addition of probiotics, then you get SIBO, right? It's like you can't win. And so one of the things that
it works for some folks, but not for all folks.
Yeah, totally works for some folks. So one of the things we were talking about last night was kind of this return to the basics, right? So the integrative model that I came up with back in, I guess it was like 2006 when I moved back here. It was this idea that these things that we do where we take responsibility for our health and well-being support our bodies in a way that the homeopathic remedy can do its job, right? And I mean, we talk about this all the time, that Hahnemann, like, we're not making this up. This isn't like a 21st century thing. Hahnemann had, all the rules for diet and regimen, even had the homeopathic diet and so forth. And there were some who said that the homeopathic patients got better because of the homeopathic diet,
good,
right, as opposed to the remedy. But, this idea was that, food, movement, and when I talk about movement, I kind of consider it to be like body work, as well as how we move our body. Mindfulness, just the way that we interact with our life and sort of take responsibility for our emotional choices, but also stop and breathe. And then the array of integrative options that, are available, some of which play well with homeopathy, and some, you kind of have to pick and choose your timing. And the idea was like, there have to be ways that we let go of all the emphasis on the pill, because if you've got, a digestive issue and you don't change your food intake, you can't expect the remedy to work, against the tide and so forth. So, but what came out of it that was...
Although it does sometimes in some rare circumstances. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and sometimes,
yeah,
like the gut biome idea. And this is part of this thing that happened where the bowel nosodes, everybody wants a bowel nosode. Take them all, right? So polybowel nosode, take it every day, sure. But the idea is, and you can see this in the primary source materials from the Patersons, who took on, after Bach, or Bach, the flower essence guy. Do you call him Bach or Bach?
When you phone the factory,
yeah,
there's a gentleman who answers the phone.
And he says, hello.
He does, actually. He says, hello.
Uh-huh.
And you'll say something like, I want some Bach Flower Remedies, and he'll say, "Excuse me, sir. He was British, not German. His name is Bach. How can I assist you today?"
Ah.
Yes.
I'm going to call them.
You do that. Can I just say that was 1994?
Okay.
So I think he might have moved on.
He might have.
But it was a beautiful voice.
And you have it. That means you have it on good authority.
I have it on good authority.
Okay, good.
Because
I took it on. I heard it from somebody. I think it might have been from Will Taylor, actually, back in the day. Bach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but everybody else says Bach, so I feel like I want to translate. It's like petrol and gas. Anyway, but when you go back to the primary source materials, it's really interesting to see that Petersons and Bach were cognizant that a good homeopathic remedy can also do what they initially postulated that the bowel nosodes would do, which is to flip the non-lactose fermenting bacilli, and that can happen. You don't need a bowel nosode to do it. You can do it with a regular remedy, although in some cases it's an efficient way to do it, right? But it's funny because every now and again you give a remedy and a food sensitivity disappears, or we see kids who kind of grow out of their allergies faster with an assist by a homeopathic remedy and so forth. But there's this way in which, and I think this is because people are kind of sicker, we have to take the strain off the vital force in order for the remedy to act. So, and actually, I say it's because people are sicker, but Hahnemann actually, that was what he was talking about. Like, in order to be cured of your chronic disease, you need to pay, footnote to aphorism 260. Yeah, like the homeopathic diet or the regimen or the avoidance of medicinal, things, or riding in a carriage or...
Riding in a carriage? Swinging.
Swinging is bad. Reading lying down.
Wearing woolen clothes.
Woolen clothes.
Next to the skin.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we'll stop there before we go on. So this idea really felt important, though, that there was this way in which people needed support, and there was a way also that people kind of need something to do. It's, in other words, what were you going to say?
I just realized that when you're talking about this, because this is essentially, or this thread, is your journey to, as a jobbing, thriving homeopath, your journey to going, I need to learn more about nutrition. I'm going to start thinking about and talking to my clients about movement and mindfulness and other modalities. I realized it's really different for me. And what happened, because it was an event for me, and it was a rainy Easter. I'm going to say 2006, maybe 7.
And remembering, everyone, Easter happens in the autumn in the southern hemisphere. It always sort of...
Of course it happens in the autumn, but the same thing happens because it always rains.
Yeah.
So Easter always rains, and it was an Easter at home. And so I did an audit, and I think I might have been tied up with an assignment for my master's. And so I eventually pulled out of my filing cabinet the last 500 cases and spread them out on the floor, analysed them. And I was looking for something, but what I actually found, really weird, it was just like, because I'm writing, features of each case down on a spreadsheet. And what I found was that 94% of my clients were not monogamous. What I mean by that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, they were seeing other practitioners or doing other medicinal stuff.
Sure.
And so I was stunned by that. Totally came from left field.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh my God, how can I ever say that arsenicum was the remedy?
We talked about this recently because we were
in a podcast.
In a podcast, because remember we were talking about how when we were talking about this very thing, and when somebody gets better, we take all the credit, and when they don't, we blame it on somebody else.
Right. Well, in that case, apologies for just not remembering that. But what it meant was I realized I needed to integrate. I needed to integrate. I needed to change my perspective. Anyway, that was it.
Oh. Did you feel like you needed to take on, sort of being the person who assisted with that, or you just referred?
No, I knew that I was never going to go train in acupuncture. I didn't want to do a weekend course in kinesiology or any colour therapy or whatever. Yeah. But it was an acknowledgement that my clients were project managing their own health.
Yeah.
And they were throwing the kitchen sink at their problem, and I was a part of it, and I therefore needed to be a part of it, not claim ownership of it or anything. I stopped writing up my best cases and sending them off to journals.
Yeah,
because you can never ever I would say in a rare circumstance actually say this remedy was responsible, especially if there are other modalities going on. And so that and my teaching changed actually from that time. So that was the context, the leading up of thinking about other methods of prescribing, and that method book, and meeting you in the corridor, that stuff.
It's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking it actually sounds so much like the experience that I had around, having all these clients with autism, right?
Yeah.
And realizing, because it was the parental project management that made it so I needed to understand what they were talking about. And while I wasn't going to take on learning, how to, help with whatever floor play or, some of the hands-on techniques that are really helpful in autism. Like there's this one.
Did you say foreplay?
No, I said floor play.
I'm sorry. I wonder if we need to edit that.
No.
But no, probably not. But so that's so interesting because, for me, I'm sitting, going to work, and I was busy in my practice in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And, whoa. And I remember someone coming in and saying, bone broth. I wrote it down. I kept going.
I've never even. What the hell's that?
Well, it would have been the 10th person that said bone broth. I'm then going, I wonder what that means.
Really?
I'm a nutritional. What do we say? How do we say
Neanderthal?
I
say that in a loving way.
I'm paleo with a capital P.
Yeah, right. You're Cro-Magnon. You're not even paleo.
Utensils optional.
Optional. Oh my gosh.
So
sausage is not a vegetable.
Well, if you put sage in it,
you do really well. You're funny. You're left to your own devices.
Not good.
No, but
the thing is, and this is one of the things that I've totally appreciated by spending more and more and more and more time with you, and that is that realizing and putting together two things, and that nutrition alongside of homeopathy, embedded within homeopathy, is the way to remove the obstacle to cure.
It's one of the ways.
Yeah, totally.
It's one of the ways.
And therefore, wow. Imagine if we had, we ruled the world and we could have a 5-year program. I'd put a bunch of nutrition in there.
Oh, totally.
And biochemistry and stuff. But
I think most of our students know that now.
Well, they do but they've approached it from Western Price and some of those different places, right? It's
funny, right? Because when I got into it, it was before. The Weston A. Price Foundation. There was, I was doing classes with Natasha Campbell McBride from the GAPS diet when that was an early thing. Because when I had the food project Alive Kitchen, which was, I want to say that was like 2010.
And when you were doing that, you were still practicing.
Yeah.
You were going to work as a homeopath, but then, amongst all of the activity.
Yeah, my office, it was a 2-story office, and the main floor was an industrial kitchen, a commercial kitchen, and upstairs were offices.
Really?
It was my office upstairs, and I had a teaching space. And
so that's amazing. And so, with the emphasis that we're talking around, especially the regimen and the removal of obstacles to cure, that's what a clinic should look like,
Totally. Except it wasn't sustainable. I loved it so much. Like, I always, food is such a part, like food as healing, food is my love language. That's sort of, that's how I roll. Uh-huh. But it's so hard. But at the time, nobody was doing it. And it was so necessary, and I thought, well, maybe I could get it started, and then somebody would take it over. And it was so labor intensive. And
this is when you were making your own bone broth. Well,
we did. There was another chef that I worked with, and we did. It was actually a really great business model if somebody wants it. We would take orders online. We would post the menu. People would people would order, and then we would get deliveries from all the farms, like the Amish farms and the the farmers and the meat producers and so forth, they would drop off. And during farmers market season, we would pick it up, but other times of the year they would drop it off. Anyway, and then we had this, 12 burner, stove situation, and we would make like 3-day bone broth. We made all this health supportive, nutrient dense food. So people would order online, and then we would know what we needed to make, and then people would come and pick it up, or we would deliver it. And we delivered.
Is that the no plastic time as well?
Yeah, no plastic. Everything was in glass. It was in jars. There were plastic lids on, like if there was like a casserole
like
kind of a thing, a Pyrex,
click.
Yeah. But no, it was really amazing. We did, like healing broths and teas. So we were delivering to people's houses, people in rehab. There was a rehab facility. We had a couple of clients there.
Wow.
Some people in hospital, and because you can't. I mean, people are just not getting nutrient dense food, or at that time, because remember now this is going back 13 years, widespread recognition of, allergens and sensitivities and inflammatory foods just wasn't a part of the conversation. Right. And so, it was amazing. And people
were
loved
you combining any of the, like, let's say you've got an order comes in.
Yeah.
And the delivery is to Pennsylvania Hospital.
Yeah.
Would you, and then you deliver or have it delivered, were you also working with them homeopathically?
Some of them came to me because they were family members or friends of my clients, but we actually got a bit of media coverage. And so there was, and word spread. I mean, it was amazing how fast it happened. And we were full within, we hit our max within 6 weeks. But it just wasn't, for a variety of reasons, it wasn't sustainable. But a lot of my clients, so I should back up though, because I think what was really interesting for me was finding out that a lot of these clients didn't really know what to do. And you could say to somebody, okay, well, you need to not do this and do that or whatever. And they just look at you blankly, like you did about the bone broth. And there are people for whom it's just not going to work in their life, and they need help. And so I found myself, and this was part of this 2006 thing, was I would be taking a case and the clients are asking me so many questions about food and, what they could do to calm their nerves, or what, how are they going to, get their blood sugar managed, or, how are they going to manage their pain? Their doctor said, da, da, da.
Yeah.
And I was finding myself spending more time doing patient education about food and lifestyle stuff than it was taking more time away from being able to get the information I needed for the homeopathy.
For the prescription.
So then I separated them and then started doing workshops and stuff like that. I mean, I think this is all really common now, but it was interesting at the end of the talk last night. I always say to you before this, people know this stuff. Do you know? I always feel like this is just, it's going to be redundant.
Know it, but they want to hear it again.
Well, and that's
they want to hear their
surprise.
Opinions validated and someone else saying them.
Well, and one of our students, Claire, came on at the end and she said, thanks, I needed the reminder. It was good to hear. And that felt really like, okay, good. It is a conversation that we can continue to have.
I think when you think about it, because I heard that comment and I thought, that makes total sense, because if you're making your own kefir, I don't even know what kefir is.
Oh my God, ask my kids. They gag at the thought of it. I used to do.
Or you're doing your
raw milk
your
kefir.
kombucha, and you're getting the raw milk from that farm, and you're getting your honey from over there, and you're getting. So that's a commitment, and then life changes, and sometimes you can't go to 4 places, or you can't have bubbling whatever in the kitchen. Yeah, so it was really interesting to hear that, and it's like we cycle back to those practices, Well,
and then it becomes, I think one of the takeaways for me in having some of these conversations is the realization that these are not individual issues. And I think a lot of times, our culture blames the sick person. I think people who deal with their weight probably know this very inherently, where people look at someone who's overweight and think, well, then you should just you should do something differently, like as if obesity and laziness are, one and the same. Whereas people have metabolic challenges, and sometimes there are foods that become addictions, and that, that opiate response that people can get from carbohydrates, right? I mean, that's really tough. I mean, that's where the homeopathy can come in to sort of break a cycle. But then there's the behavioral follow-up, right? That has to happen. And I look at it and I think, we often blame ourselves when we're not well, or people look askance when someone is sick, especially, God forbid, they're a homeopath or a healer. Like, when my kids would be sick, people would look like, how did that happen? Because they live in a body, it happens. Anyway, but it's, what I realize though, is that it's a societal problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've built up a society that doesn't, I don't know if it doesn't value, but it's made it so hard for people to make their own food, to take time to meditate, to breathe, to walk outside, like the dopamine hits we get from our phones. Like, it's really hard, And so having the conversation about it, especially in a community setting, it was like, there were a couple of moments last night where I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is really great to sort of be acknowledging in community that we're all facing challenges in sort of the maintenance of health and best practices in how we manage our lives.
And so your first lecture in that series was about food.
Yeah.
And you defined, and no, I think you said something, I totally, I mostly agree, and then I totally disagree about one thing you said.
Go on. You
said that we should eat...
Oh, no, you're talking about the Michael Pollan thing.
Yeah.
Michael Pollan, so if you don't know Michael Pollan, he sort of made his splash with the omnivore's dilemma, and now he's into psychedelics. He's a cool guy, San Francisco, or Berkeley. Right. Anyway, but he says, eat food, mostly plants, not too much.
Not too much, but he's missing one thing.
What?
And because the way I learned it was eat food, mostly plants, not too much, and only things that your grandmother would recognize as food.
Oh. Mm. Yeah, but if it is food...
No, because you've got to have another aspect to that.
Okay.
Because Doritos would be...
But that's not food.
Well, but...
it falls out of that.
It's plant-based. But I think about Enid.
Enid, yeah.
Yeah, and I think about would she recognize
Alastair's grandmother.
Yeah. And would she recognize that? And I sometimes go, no, I don't think so.
Well, my grandmother wouldn't recognize a lot of things as food because she was, she wielded her wooden spoon with authority.
With might.
But I love that idea, though, of, eat food, like actual food. But sometimes people don't even know what actual food is, I mean...
And so here we are, Strange Yet Peculiar. And again, I like it because we are firmly committed homeopaths.
Totally.
That's what we do.
If you haven't noticed already.
Yeah, and the point is, it's not that we're deviating, it's not that, our focus is elsewhere. It's that, no, with this person, with this case, is there a regimen challenge? Is there an obstacle that needs to be removed?
Yeah, and now I remember what we had said we were going to talk about, which of course it's a little bit too late, but it's focused on, the Lyme lecture. The Lyme lecture that I did on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So it follows two cases. One is a case that went horribly wrong, and it was focused on Lyme as a pathological diagnosis, and it was a homeopath, a certified homeopath, but who wanted to try out all the bells and whistles, and who made so many remedy changes and used so many interventions and that the case really went off the rails. The other case was a case that unfolded over time naturally and came to sort of a beautiful space of health, health and vitality and so forth. And one of the things that we see over and over and over again is that the sort of introduction of some lifestyle change or some acknowledgement of something that we do that causes us pain or harm can stop us from changing a remedy. Right? Or the other side of it is about how, and this is something I love that our students do really well, of course, because we beat it into them with, a rubber mallet, but, don't change the remedy when you might just need to change the potency or the posology. We had a beautiful follow-up yesterday. Dana, who just beautiful work. And it's a child, and she figured out that the sweet spot for the delivery of the remedy was, I think it's like an 8-ounce triple dilution every third day or something. And it was really amazing to watch her logic, which was flawless, and then to see the students who are, so she's a graduate, she's doing her final, she's in supervision, and then to see students who are finishing their first year, sort of looking like, wow, and I'm like, yep, you can do that too. It comes with time and experience, but it's these little things that, I hope that by talking about it and really sort of, getting the community on board where we're not looking for the perfect remedy to solve a giant problem, but rather to learn case management and posology and how to unfold things gradually over time, and using supportive measures to help the person so that, the length of time that it takes for us to really get back to center from a chronic, situation, that we can ease that time by making some really good sort of, choices that support our bodies.
A stick of compassion.
Oh my gosh.
What? Instead of a rubber mallet.
Oh, I thought you meant with clients. I'm like, of course, but no,
our students.
No, of course.
No rubber mallets.
I know that this conversation today didn't have all the homeo juice to it.
Have we still got unwoven threads?
I'm sure.
I'm sure you started 5 things.
And I promised that I would hold on to all of them for you, but alas, we come to the close. But I'm glad that we took a minute to talk about the integrative stuff and just
Context.
supporting our bodies.
Yeah,
Context.
Exactly. And so you're going to be talking now about movement, mindfulness, and then other therapies.
And other therapies, yeah. So anybody who wants to come, it's a free class, and it's
Cool.
just a fun way to spend time and and see faces, because it's interactive. The other things, next week we have a special guest. I hope, because she was very busy the last time and couldn't make it.
Yes.
And then one of the things that I want to talk about coming up is that we are working on a very exciting project, which is around homeopathy and palliative and end-of-life care. And we're working with a group of integrative practitioners to hopefully kind of gain momentum, because it's a pretty big team working on this, to gain momentum in, the comfort care idea and creating more awareness about, the processes at the end of life, and, hoping that we can influence change through, providing care to a lot of people. And so I've been doing a ton of research and writing the curriculum. So we're going to very soon be inviting practitioners, certified practitioners who are interested in joining this project. We'll be introducing a course. And the course will not just be about homeopathy, but it will be about, compassionate care for people who have a terminal diagnosis, who are in the end of life phases, of how we can support, the client and their family, and how homeopathy, can and should be an integral part of this, this transition time. I'm really excited about this project. Really excited. Yeah.
We also have 285,000 questions that have been collated from people feeding back about this podcast.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen them. Where are they? They must be in the Dropbox.
They're somewhere in Dropbox. And
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should do a Q&A webinar, not just a podcast, but what if we did, and then we could see people's faces. I suppose I shouldn't ask this question when we're...
Then you're going to have... but then it's going to be, I have to look good and I can't be wearing this. I mean...
Okay. And you have a problem with that?
No, I don't, actually.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, we'll schedule that.
All right, let's do it.
Nice.
Hey, thanks for caring about homeopathy.
All right, see you, folks.
Bye.
AHE is changing the face of homeopathy education by raising the bar through rigorous academics and unparalleled clinical training delivered live through the soulful use of cutting-edge technology. AHE prepares its students to become fully rounded homeopathic practitioners from anywhere in the world. Apply today at ahe.online.